Hi guys, Chuck Quinton here, founder of RST. Let's talk about an overview of what the takeaway is all about in rotary swing. Because again, one of these things that frustrates me about golf instruction out there is that it's so random and so conflicting, and nobody ever tells you why you want to do something this way or exactly how to do it. That's where RST is so different. We're not only going to tell you exactly why something has to be done this way to be efficient, but exactly how to do it. And that's the difference. We're going to be very, very specific. And with the takeaway, you've no doubt seen my 2-inch shoulder blade guide takeaway movement, which is profound because what I'm getting you to do is focus on you moving your body a tiny little amount in order to move the club a long ways. And in the takeaway, we're talking about 6, 7, 8 feet of movement of the club, but you don't try and move the club 7 or 8 feet. That's really difficult to control, and you start worrying about your hands and your arms and all of this stuff. There's all these moving components. You focus on moving your body, your shoulder blade, a couple inches, and that will move the club. So what does that look like exactly? So when I'm teaching my students, I like to take the arms and the club out of it. We focus on moving from the inside out. And what we're doing here with the takeaways, all I'm going to do is shift my weight to the right and then pull my shoulder blade back. And I'm only going to do this about 45 degrees. My hips are going to rotate a little bit. We're going to minimize that hip movement. We don't want our hips rotating a lot really early. It causes all kinds of issues. But what we're going to do here is just focus on pulling that shoulder blade. I'm just taking my shoulder back, and that, if I just do this, is the whole takeaway. This is what you need to think about when you're working on your golf swing, is look at it without the arms and the club attached. Let's get the core primary movements that move the club and the arms first, right? And then we'll start working on the rest of the stuff that's happening in the periphery, right? So that's the whole takeaway. Can you do this? Of course you can. How easy is that? A little bit of weight shift to the right and a little bit of shoulder blade glide, and I literally have just made a perfect takeaway. So when you're struggling with your takeaway, it's because you're adding extra movements in there that don't need to be there. So we're going to add one more movement now, or no movement really, but we're going to add one more piece of complexity to it. I'm going to extend my arms out. So now movement's exactly the same. My takeaway is as good as anybody's in the world just by these simple little movements that I did. What's that going to do to the club? Once I add the club, boom, done. That's all I did. I shift my weight to the right, and I keep focusing not on what this club's doing. I couldn't care less. It's going to go exactly where I want it to when I focus on moving my body correctly. So let's take a look from down the line. We'll go back to this movement first. I'm shifting and pulling the shoulder back, and that moves the club. What did I do with my arms and hands? Basically nothing. They are being moved by my body movement, and the club is being moved by my hands. That's how you move the golf club, not by taking the club, and this is where everybody goes wrong in the takeaway, doing this with their wrists or trying to put the club back here. It's so difficult to do. You can't see what's happening back here, and you're focused on hitting a ball out here, not hitting it in the water or whatever. And so when you start doing this stuff and you're trying to go that way, it becomes impossible to monitor what's going on behind you. So you want to focus on just moving your body and creating this very simple movement that you can now see moves the club exactly where I want it to go in a perfect takeaway, just like all the tour pros, which is incredibly simple and efficient. My hands and wrists have done very, very little. A little bit of rotation, a little bit of wrist cock, as the club would feel really awkward and heavy if I didn't allow my wrist to cock. And that is all the takeaway that there is to understand. The rotary swing takeaway is incredibly simple. It's the fewest moving parts humanly possible to create a perfect takeaway. So big picture, you're not doing anything with your arms and hands, hardly at all. There's such minimal movement to master the Rotary Swing Tour takeaway. Now take a look at the more in-depth videos where we talk about the right arm and the wrists and the shoulder blade guide. I get into that more specifically. So that's the overview of how simple the Rotary Swing Tour takeaway really is.